A $3,000 camera shooting a blank white apartment wall still looks like a student film, but a $500 cell phone shooting a beautifully dressed set looks like a film. You can buy the most expensive cinema camera on the market, but it still won't make your poorly designed set look interesting.
And that expensive camera is probably going to make those cheap costumes look even cheaper.
Sorry, Spirit Halloween.
Oh, yeah.
Welcome to Indie Film Podcast. I'm Victoria.
And I'm Chuck. We're covering the 7 deadly sins of low-budget indie filmmaking. So far, we've talked about shoddy scripts as well as skipping rehearsals.
So today, we're going to talk about how really cheap or poorly designed props, sets, and costumes can absolutely tank your film. So Chuck, I have a fun hypothetical for you.
I love hypotheticals. They're all fun. There's no such thing as an unfun hypothetical.
Wonderful.
Prove me wrong in the comments.
Let's say you're making a sci-fi movie, perhaps a creature feature, or even just a period piece set 100 years ago, and you suddenly get an influx of $10,000 extra into your budget. Where are you going to put it?
I am going to put it into a really expensive camera and just shoot the hell out of those white walls all over the set.
Love
that
it.
I'm filming in, because as long as I have all that dynamic range, I'll be able to fix the lack of contrast on those white walls in post.
I definitely believe you. Everyone listening absolutely believes you.
Yeah.
More power to you, Chuck.
I think the point is you can have the most expensive camera in the world, but if you have a very boring set, then it's still going to look boring.
Yeah, you put down a really fun, I don't know if it's a quote from someone or if you just came up with this yourself, but a $3,000 camera shooting a blank white apartment wall still looks like a student film, but a $500 cell phone shooting a beautifully dressed set looks like a film.
Yes, for sure. Well, I mean, obviously, there's still the lighting that you have to take into account.
Yes.
And we're going to get into that on another episode. But yeah, you want to have things look cool. And it's tricky to just dive into things like superhero movies or monster movies or sci-fi movies, which my brother and I decided to tackle a sci-fi movie on our first feature film. I'm sure we'll talk about some of the mistakes that we've made. I've done it before, but I can rehash some of those mistakes that we made without having a lot of money and how that affected the look of our sci-fi film.
Yeah.
But those types of movies, if you dive into them without having an idea and prep work and money for an art department, you might be looking at something that looks kind of crappy, unfortunately. This episode brought to you by Spirit Halloween.
Spirit Halloween is no longer taking your call.
Yeah.
And no shade to Spirit Halloween. Like, realistically, if you're going in and you're getting costumes, like, already good for you. That puts you pretty far ahead of a lot of filmmakers.
Who else is going to bring business into that empty store that closed down 6 months ago?
You're right. They're just fueling rural America's economies one step at a time.
Yeah, it's a big deal. It's a big deal. So definitely support Spirit Halloween, but maybe don't use those. I don't know if you should support Spirit Halloween, but definitely don't lean into their cheap costumes for your films, because it's going to look like a B film, unless that's what you want.
There is a stylized purpose for everything. There is. But if you can get a costumer, we're lucky to know a few really, really talented ones. But if you can get a costumer, you could even give them those cheap Halloween costumes and talk to them about ways to improve or adjust or edit those costumes.
Yeah.
And a talented costumer is going to be able to, which is impressive.
For sure. And, we're going to talk about some of the things that we think are important. It's trickier in a city our size, which a lot of you out there are outside that are listening are outside of, London, New York, LA, where
Austin.
they do have, Austin, where they do have sets available to rent that look like XYZ, 1970s doctor's office.
Yeah.
Or whatever the case may be. So you have to set this stuff up yourself. And it's not easy.
It's not.
And you got to source a lot of different things.
Yeah. And I know that in the past we've talked a little bit about use a house that somebody actually lives in when you can, which is still something I would highly recommend. If possible, don't go to an apartment rental property management company, whatever, and say, hey, do you have an empty apartment that we can just bring in some furniture? That's going to get really expensive really fast. And unless you have entire storage sheds just filled with spare matching furniture sets, then it's going to be a pain in the butt.
Yeah, somebody was telling me a story about that recently, and I don't want to throw them under the bus, but they were really excited about having access to a location that didn't have anybody in them, or didn't have anyone there living in it. And so, but then the issue became, oh, wait, this place isn't furnished. So it was a bigger headache to try to figure out how to stock that empty place full of things than just finding somebody that was going to be gone for the weekend.
Unfortunately. Though I will say that with that of using somebody's home comes the caveat of that doesn't mean you don't need to do anything to it, and it doesn't mean that your set is fully dressed.
Correct.
It just means you're not starting from nothing.
Right.
Which is nice.
Yes.
But yeah, you're still going to need to make sure that it fits the color palette of your entire film. You're still going to need to make sure that all the family photos of the family that actually lives there are maybe hidden and tucked away, along with any personal tax documents or other things like that.
Right.
Maybe if they're a very expensive art collector, you take the mayonnaise down off the walls if, your actual character is more of a 9-to-5 blue collar worker.
Yeah, exactly. We actually came into a recent situation, I guess not recent because we shot this 4 years ago, but with my brother and I and my sister-in-law when we were shooting Stockton to Table Rock, we ended up using our friend Jesse's house, who actually did the score. But the issue with his place was, one, it was actually set decked almost perfectly.
Which is glorious.
But he, too, is an avid reader. And the character Shelley in the movie was clearly not an avid reader.
Yeah.
Because she was raging alcoholic or borderline alcoholic.
Which is
clandestine alcoholic.
That everybody can read and everybody should read.
Oh, true.
Support your local libraries. But it would obviously have not been a priority for her. She was very self-focused, very fitness-focused, very cooking, food, and alcohol-focused.
Yes, for sure. Yeah, I'm not saying that raging alcoholics can't be bookworms. It's very, very possible. I just find it real hard to remember what chapter I'm on if I got a buzz.
That's why you use a bookmark, Sean.
I guess, yeah. I guess I forget what I just read the night before. So I tend to avoid books or difficult movies after a few beers.
Fair.
But anyway, so we had to move our friend Jesse's multiple bookshelves into another room before we started filming because we didn't want to accidentally convey that this character was an avid reader.
Yeah.
It was okay to have a few, but Jesse, our friend, reads a lot. So he had 2 bookshelves
entire
full of books.
walls full of bookshelves. Yes.
So it was definitely a different vibe. But it's really important to think about that when you go into shoot with your character, especially if you're doing, for lack of a better word, a type of mumblecore movie where you want it to be minimal budget, you want it to be character focused, kind of run and gun. Still take the time to consider what you have around in the set and maybe consider popping into a pawn shop and picking up a few odds and ends just to make it look a little bit more like your characters.
Pawn shops, thrift shops, donation closets, asking friends and family if they have some spare odds and ends. Those are all really easy ways to get a few more little accent pieces that you can just borrow or get on the cheap. And hopefully that works out.
Yeah, and somebody that knows what they're doing. I want to talk about the Sci-Fi thing just real quick as well, because my brother and we shot our first film, I think it was like 10 years ago now, and we decided to do a Sci-Fi, which I've talked about before. But we brought in one of our friends who was really into not set deck, excuse me, but she made props, she made costumes for herself.
Yeah.
She later got into LARPing, and so was very skilled at designing things. And we were trying to figure out what this device was that connected people's minds together.
Yeah.
And so we went around to pawn shops, we went around to dollar stores, try to figure out a one thing that would work for this. And it all looked really stupid because we had this idea of a headband, and we tried headphones and putting it on, and everything looked really, really cheap until we brought our friend on, and she took us to a medical store and the dollar store and got these medical suction cups that just clipped on people's heads. It just stayed there.
Yeah.
And then she decorated them with parts that she removed from some LED wristbands and designed these little contraptions that actually looked decent.
Yeah.
And looked a lot more believable than anything that we had done previously.
Which is awesome. And I can't believe I didn't remember the dollar store. The dollar store is another great place to get little odds and ends, especially for electronics or little lights.
Yes.
Or just little accents that you want tied into something. That's brilliant.
Did we have to get 40 of the light bands because they didn't have replaceable batteries and they would keep dying all the time? Yes, we did. But we learned how to dissect them really quickly and then put the light back onto our little head suction cup contraption thing.
Yeah.
But it helped enormously. And then on the back end of that, we had this mad scientist character, and we didn't know what to do for his experimental area, so we just used my garage, and I had one leftover computer, so I just gutted it and spread it out over the top of a foldable table, which I guess was kind of okay, but it's like it would have been cooler to have spent a little bit more time in the garage and make it a little bit more sci-fi-y, so that you didn't just have like a rake in the background. But
well, you do what you can. And come on,
it's a lab/garage.
Yeah, he wouldn't want to disrupt the flow of the house with stuff. Like, as a kid, when I did science experiments, I too did them in the garage. So,
Good point.
If you're going to blow something up, don't blow up your home. The garage is fine, but your home, come on.
Dual purpose. I guess you can always just make up an excuse for why you didn't do art department 100%.
You can always make up. There's an excuse for everything.
Part
don't
of the
worry.
character.
It's definitely out there, we promise.
Yeah.
Well, you actually had walked through one thought that I really, really loved, and it was when you walk into your set, what is it telling you about the character, and is that right?
I think that's important.
And so for that particular scientist, when you walk into his garage lab, you're realizing maybe he doesn't have the funding for a full underground bat cave kind of situation.
Yeah.
But that's okay.
It would have been good to have that be the plan at the beginning. So
to lean in to the low budget mad scientist.
Yeah, maybe add a line in there, not super expository, but
something about defaulting on a loan or having to pull out a third mortgage on your home or something like that.
I'm trying to get us to the singularity so I don't have to worry about my mortgage next month.
Yeah.
A really good plot device, I think.
Fun one. Add a little bit more plot to that already plot heavy film.
Realistic for everybody right now. We need to get to the point where technology takes care of us before we all default on all of our payments.
The little things.
Another reason you don't want to be spending another $10,000 on camera department.
Can you afford that? No. So, okay, then what about the color palette for Stockton to Table Rock?
Color palette for Stockton to Table Rock?
Yeah.
That's a great question. I actually don't remember much about that. That was definitely Zoe's department. But
key there was somebody who knew what that color palette was.
Yeah, and it was in our friend Jesse's home, very, very lived in, but we did make sure that it just looked nice.
And it had a lot of warm, earthy colors
for sure
to it. And because the entire film is very much down to earth, grounded, modern day, none of the sci-fi stuff like your mad scientist situation.
For sure.
Having some of those more warm, earthy tones, the greens, the browns, things like that, worked really, really well.
Yes.
And played throughout the film nicely.
Thank you for answering the question for me, because
I don't actually know if that's 100% the color palette,
100%.
but it felt it that way when watching it.
So you noticed that there was.
Yeah, and
it was intentional.
It looked cohesive.
Yeah.
Right? Like, yes, the hospital definitely looked different than the home, looked different than the bicycle studio.
Yeah, which we got lucky on those too, right?
Yeah.
Actually, that was another aspect that we did for the set design or for set deck for Stockton to Table Rock was at the bike studio. We wanted to have a race on those stationary bikes with the person's name moving up and down.
Yeah.
And so Zoe actually did design all of the colors and the brands for this fake
cycle company that's definitely not Soul Cycle, but is like copyright infringemently close to it, or not Orange Theory, but you're definitely competing against other people in the class for heart rate points because that's the trend is to have workout classes like that. So it made this feel even more real without having to ask a large brand if you can use their logos.
Yeah, we were concerned about just using the bicycles and then also having to stage the people to pedal in a way that made the names move.
Yeah.
And so Zoe designed the status board, and then our friend Seth is a computer programmer, and he just wrote the code
to make it bounce around,
so we could have the names move exactly how we wanted to have them move, so we could get close-ups of the script playing out. And then also on the wide shots when we were at those certain parts, we just made sure that the script was playing that area of the, whoever was supposed to be.
And when
in
you're
first, second,
saying
third,
script
fourth.
here, you mean the computer code script, not
Computer
the
code
script of the film.
No. But they both have to match.
They do. But okay, cool.
But it added a nice level of realism to be able to go into the bicycle studio. And then, really lucky that one of my best friends from high school went on to become a computer programmer that he made this HTML code thing and then gave me just an Excel document that I could manually modify so that I could have whoever's name pop up at whatever second marker and move him around myself. He's like, I don't need to do that. I just wrote you a program. Just fill in the gaps here of wherever you want to have this move.
Just enter the name where it's supposed to go and enter the position it's supposed to be, and it'll ding up there.
Yeah, and then he made it animate and things like that. So that was kind of fun.
So there you go.
Yeah.
Always keep in touch with your high school friends. It's important.
Yes. You never know who's going to become useful to you later. So even if it's for selfish reasons, Seth and I are great friends to this day.
No, that's the Baz Luhrmann quote is I think it's specifically referring to your siblings, but like it applies to the friends that you spent all your time with. Is always make the effort to keep in touch with the people you knew, because the older you get, the more you need the people you knew when you were young.
Yeah, so they can set you straight.
Exactly.
The good old days weren't that good.
They were not. Stop fantasizing that everything was great.
You're reminiscing incorrectly.
I mean, that is another part of the it's the everybody was free to wear sunscreen song.
Oh.
Which is more of a spoken poem.
Oh, I don't know that one.
It's delightful. I love it. I try to live my life by that most days.
I try to avoid sunscreen at all costs.
That's a fun bandwagon.
Should we talk about your cheap trick for the week?
Yeah.
I really enjoyed this one a whole bunch.
I was really excited to have a cheap trick.
Yes. What's your cheap trick?
Candles and the obligatory fire extinguisher to go with them. I think candles are a fantastic thing to have with you, either just in your kit bag or in your car or wherever, because they make great little practical additions. And I know some gaffers out there are going to be like, don't you dare actually light a real candle on a set. Not just for safety reasons, but also because you don't get to control the color temperature. You don't get to control the flicker patterns. Like, you don't get to control any of that light.
Things get wild.
But in a pinch, they are nice to have. And it's a really warm light. And it looks nice in a dark corner or on a desk. And it can often bring out just some really nice light pops in places where you normally wouldn't have them. And also, if your entire cast and crew is sharing, say, one bathroom, then maybe just light a candle in there early on during the day and just prevent any uncomfortable situations as the day progresses.
So many shy poopers out there. Everybody wants to be on camera, but everybody is also very shy about their poops. They wrote a book about that where you're not supposed to be embarrassed of it. I can't remember what it's called, like something poops.
I think it's everybody.
Everybody, yes.
Everybody is what you're looking for.
Yeah.
And then Family Guy has the joke that's the obligatory Catholic version of that, where it's like nobody poops and that's concentrated sin coming out the back of you.
Oh yeah. I feel like in the artistic community, that's where it leans towards. At least the ones in front of the camera.
Either way, candles are really nice.
People don't care.
Candles are really nice. They're practical to have for more than one thing, though obligatory thought to go with that is if you're going to have candles and actual fire anywhere, always have a fire extinguisher. Everybody should just have a fire extinguisher. I personally have two in my home because I enjoy fire and I also enjoy not having a burnt down home.
Nice.
But
I keep one on me at all times. I just hope I don't get it confused with my pepper spray if I get into a difficult situation.
It's perfect.
It's hard to forget, though, because the fire extinguisher is a lot bigger than
it's
the pepper
a little bit larger than the pepper spray.
Well, this is like the grizzly bear pepper spray. And then they're about the same size, I think.
Don't they just call that bear spray?
Bear spray?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
That's
bear spray.
It's good for getting rid of bears.
It's apparently.
So do you want to talk about, Victoria did an awesome job of breaking down, I want to look at this, the almost foolproof indie film art department checklist.
Yes.
Because you do have an eye for design.
Sometimes.
If I may say so myself.
Well, thank you.
And because you do all the thumbnails and the design on the website.
I don't know
like
if we should emphasize that to all the listeners who've probably seen all of those.
Yeah, I'm going to emphasize it. I take zero responsibility. I just process the audio and color grade the picture.
Smart.
The static shot.
Though I will throw this out there to the people who message us and talk about contacting the entire Indie Film Podcast team. I'm so flattered that anybody thinks it's more than just us.
No, it's just the two of us
doing all of it.
We got it all covered here. We do our best to try to keep up on emails and messages and social media messages and things like that.
We do try. We don't
It's a little
always
tricky sometimes.
Yeah, there's a lot that come through all at once sometimes, and we get a little bogged down. But we get there. We will reply to you. We will
eventually.
Yes.
Eventually. Oh, and before I forget, subscribe, follow if you're listening to us up to this point, please.
Oh, yeah. If you've stuck around so far, then, hey, that means you should come back next week and listen to what else we're going to talk about.
Give us a boost in the algorithm. It's the least you could do. Hit that subscribe, smash that like or whatever, follow or whatever you're doing, wherever you're listening to us. And we're on platforms I didn't even know existed. You just throw stuff up on the internet and it just gets picked up by
It gets populated in other places.
Algorithms.
It just happens.
Thank you. Do you want to go over your list here?
Yes.
I am excited about this.
Okay, so I'm going to go through it really fast first just to hit all the main key points.
Okay.
So everybody knows what's coming.
Sweet.
And then I'm going to go through it a little bit more in detail.
I hate surprises. This is perfect.
Yeah, nobody in film likes surprises.
No. I'm just averse to them.
The almost foolproof indie film art department checklist.
Okay.
1, somebody owns the look. 2, decide your look before you shoot.
Cool.
3, control your frame. 4, everything should work together, ideally in layers.
Okay.
5, don't screw yourself in post.
Oh, that goes true for everything, not just art department, but I like it.
Yeah, I felt like that was just a very relatable one. And then 6, be honest about your budget.
I like that.
Okay, so...
Are we going to start in random order or should we start with 1?
I wanted to just popcorn it, go all the way around in different numbers.
Okay.
No, I was going to start with number 1.
Perfect. I don't like surprises. We've covered this.
I think we may have talked about that already on this episode, in fact. Okay. So
someone owning the look. I do like that a lot.
Yes. And it doesn't matter if it's just like Phil, who's also your AD, but somebody needs to be responsible for this look. So like on Stockton to Table Rock, even though you didn't 100% know what it was, Zoe did.
Yeah.
Because Zoe was your production designer.
For sure. Yeah.
Obviously, if you can hire a production designer whose job is to do all of this, that's amazing and wonderful. And you will probably notice a difference, if nothing else, in at least your stress levels. But you will notice a difference in your final product to your film if you have somebody who's done this before, who's dedicated specifically to this.
Yeah.
It's just helpful.
But don't worry about sound guy. Just bring your nephew on to do boom stuff. No, I'm just kidding. We're going to talk about sound in a different episode.
Don't worry. Sound is definitely one of the sins.
All right. So have somebody on. I like that.
Yes. And you need to decide your look before you start shooting. Like this is not a last minute, actually, I think I like the purple blanket better because he's also wearing a purple shirt. So I think that works.
Ooh, that sounds dangerous.
Yeah. Don't do that last minute.
Just a sea of purple on the couch. I'm just assuming they're on the couch in this scene. I probably should
I think I said couch.
Oh, okay, cool.
I don't know. We'll hear it when we listen back to it. Okay.
I go in and out on whether I'm listening to you or listening to myself on this podcast.
It's okay. I'm sure some of our listeners relate. Okay. So you're going to pick a color palette. It does not have to be fancy. It does not have to be special. We're talking 2 to 4 main colors that you're going to focus on. Ideally, if there's a reason behind them, that's great. If not, they're just your favorite colors. That's fine too. We can work with that. And then pick 1 or 2 accents that work nicely with them and kind of balance a little bit of it out. Don't leave anything on the too warm side or the too cool side. Having a little bit of contrast is nice. And yes, there are so many free tools online that will do this for you. You can Google color palette generator and they will find you millions. Adobe has one. Canva has one. I don't know. There are some that I think are just like colorpalette.com or something like that. There are plenty of ways to find it and find one that kind of fits your needs on what sort of contrast and how heavy of a contrast you're looking for. Or if that sounds like too much, Google your favorite film plus color palette. And then it'll just pop up for you.
Yeah. That is kind of neat how it does that.
It just shows you.
Yeah, that's been part of slide decks on the projects I've worked on. Not that I've ever done one myself, but these are the projects that inspire us. This is the color palette of this film. This is the color palette of this film. And it is something that you can just basically find on the internet, which is awesome.
Exactly. And you can lean into it. Like your warmer tones are going to be in your highlights in your color grade. Your cooler tones are going to be in the shadows on your color grade. Make sure your colorist knows this.
Yeah, ahead of time.
But that way it kind of gives the whole thing a cohesive feel.
Okay.
And it makes it look like you put a lot of time and effort and energy into this when maybe it was just sort of like on somebody's mind.
Yeah, for sure.
The next thing is controlling your frame. So this is kind of like shooting in that house that somebody lives in that we talked about.
Yeah.
So this is where PEMDAS lied to you. If anybody else has that haunting them from elementary school and junior high. But
parentheses, exponents.
Exponents.
Maybe that's how they say it. Maybe that's how they say it in England or something. Sorry. In the UK, they say exponents.
I don't know if they do. Okay.
And color has a U in it. All right, so
you are going to subtract first.
Oh, you're subtracting first.
Yes,
okay,
when
I see what
you
you're
walk
saying.
into one of those places that's already lived in or already set or it's already an actual restaurant, you're going to remove the things that don't apply first.
Okay.
And then that way you see what you're really left with so you can come back in and build out what else you need. If it's somebody's home, things that tell you more about the character. If it's a location that they're at, obviously the important props that people are going to be using because that does matter. But also, what are the other things that are known about this restaurant, this space, this place, things like that. Just build it up as you go, and then set up your frame and make sure that your frame has a background, a midground, and a foreground. And if there's something lacking, like say a foreground, then get a potted plant or a candle and throw it right up there in the front.
Yeah, make sure it matches. I like that. I like the addition by subtraction as well.
Yeah.
We that's actually a psychological phenomenon is that humans tend to add before they subtract. And my favorite example of that is the Strider bike. Have you seen those Strider bikes that toddlers use where they have no pedals?
Oh, they're just like the walk-in?
Yeah, they walk on the bike. And when I grew up, and I'm sure same for you, everybody had training wheels when they were kids on their, but it didn't really actually help you learn how to ride a bicycle.
It did not.
And it took forever for somebody to realize like, well, we just take the pedals off. And then the kids that learn to push themselves on those Strider bikes without any pedals can usually just like hop on a bicycle and then pedal it when they're ready to go, which is nuts.
Because mastering the balance is kind of the hardest part.
Yeah.
So let's get that down before we add in this bicycling motion with your legs.
Yeah. So I like that point when you have a place that's lived in or a set that's ready to go, take things away before you start just adding stuff on top of it.
Exactly. And then you kind of know what you're left with and what you're working
Unless you want, the person to appear like a hoarder. And if that's a part of their character, that's a part of their character.
If that's a part of the character, then by all means, just bring in more stuff. That's totally fine. I still think you should remove anything that's like personally identifying, though.
Yeah,
that just feels like a nice thing to do for the people who are letting you use their location.
My birth certificate or social security number on the back wall on the podcast here. I had to just move it to the other side of the studio. That's my greatest accomplishment in my lifetime is just existing.
Just exist.
Yeah, it's all been downhill since then.
Most people hang degrees. I hang my birth certificate.
Yeah.
I didn't ask to be on this ride, but here I am. Okay, so when you're looking at dressing the frame, I like to think of when we were filming that movie for Mark Ewan's last summer, Remember on Wednesday.
Yeah.
And we were filming in a principal's office that was definitely not in a school.
Oh, yes, yes.
And for
you
most of it...
You did a great job of set decking that.
It was relatively simple.
Yeah.
But it was... It conveyed principal's office, and that was all it needed to do.
Because this was at just like a regular office.
Yeah.
For just business people.
Yeah,
like
a
they
car.
say in BoJack Horseman, the two children were business. It was just like it felt like business in there. So, but it's not principal. So you did a good job on set decking that really quickly.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Well, the key was I bought a bunch of posters, like those really dorky little motivational posters that you can just hang up.
Hang in there with a picture of a kitten.
The cat, yes.
Nice.
It was things like that, but they were all school and education related.
Okay.
And I picked out all the ones that I liked the best and that fit our color palette. Mm-hmm. And then I waited and just had them sitting there, and I knew it the minute we flipped the world, if you will, and started filming the other side of the frame.
Yeah.
Suddenly... there are some blank walls that look a little bit annoying and a little bit pale. So I can just go from my trusty little kit here and pull up some extra. So always bring extra.
Oh, yeah.
You may not use it, and that's fine, but you don't want to need it and not have it.
That's cool. And just to clarify for everybody there that's listening, when we were in that office, it was tiny.
It was a very small office.
And so it was essentially a 2-shot, and there was no way to really do a wide because it was so small.
Yeah.
The desk bumped up against the wall almost. You had to just kind of squeeze through it, and we had 4 people in there. And so when you were
5.
Oh, 5, yeah. Well, I mean...
Plus the crew.
Oh, yeah, 5 actors plus the crew. So it was really cramped quarters, and I would imagine normally when you're set decking, you would probably look at the wide and take it from there. But in this instance, it was we had to set one frame and then do the other, so you saved your props to make sure that you had enough to keep it
exactly, yeah,
looking neat
that's
once we
more
flipped
of a
it.
Specific
and
example.
Not having to use the same poster on the other side of the wall.
That would have been a little rough.
Yes.
You could do it, but it might have been a little bit rough.
Yeah.
Okay, so everything working together is not just reflected in like the color palette, but it's also just that cohesive look and feel.
Okay.
So ideally, all these scenes happen in the same movie.
Ideally, you're making a movie where all the scenes happen in the same movie.
These don't all happen in different worlds.
I don't know about that statement you made. It seems a little far-fetched for me.
It's a little bit out there,
Okay.
but keep in mind that despite it all working together, you do need some things to stand out. So just like in your color palette, you could choose like one really bold color just because the main character of your film, and now Mark's name is on my mind, so we're going to call him main character Mark. Sorry, Mark. You're just an example. Just because he's a dull person who lives in like a dull beige house does not mean that you should put him in also a dull beige shirt.
Oh, yeah.
Because we will not see Mark. We will just see his head kind of floating there, especially if like the furniture is all kind of the same color, and you need a little bit of color pop too.
Yeah. Maybe he wears a Hawaiian shirt because he aspires to be something that he's not.
Maybe.
That's why I wear Hawaiian shirts.
Or he just wears
in
like...
the North Pacific Northwest. Just for example.
It's a good look.
Yeah.
Okay.
Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
That's exactly it.
Okay.
Spot on. But maybe also if you want to convey boring, maybe it's just that his shirts don't have any patterns. It's just a very simple little shirt. Like not even a collared shirt, just a little, black shirt, black t-shirt or a graphic tee or something.
As long as it's different.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you don't want everything looking the same.
No, that doesn't feel good. And then don't screw yourself in post because you want to fix it in post, but you will not always be able to. So take continuity photos.
Oh, yeah.
Make sure somebody is responsible for continuity photos.
Yeah, especially if you're jumping around different days.
Yep.
That is real rough.
It's very, very important. So whoever has the list of your production's design should also have it on their list to take continuity photos. Even if it's just a little pickup shot or something, just take the continuity. It's one photo. It takes up almost no space on your cell phone. You can delete it when you're done with the movie. Yeah. But just for continuity's sake, you never know what's going to happen. You never know what footage is going to get lost. You never know. Take the continuity photos.
Maybe set that on your checklist before you set up for the next shot every time.
Yeah.
Before you move on.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Just take a good look at things. And maybe like if there's a lot of action and crazy things happening in the scene, then take a before and after photo. So you can kind of get an idea of how it started and how it ended.
Oh, yeah, good call.
Like if furniture gets moved around or broken or flipped on its side or something.
Oh, yeah.
And then, of course, be honest about your budget.
Yeah.
If you've got $5,000 to make a 30-minute short film, maybe don't make it a period piece.
Yeah.
Just don't do it. Why does it need to be couldn't it be set in modern day?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, like that. Am I going to rip on another movie? Yes, I am. Like that Civil War movie that came out, the American Civil War movie that came out like 2 years ago.
Yeah, with the reporters and
I was like, I don't understand why this needs to be set in the American Civil War. It seems like it could have just been any war as far as the story is concerned.
Yeah, but being set in the American Civil War made it a lot more poignant to the time because it was near election season and everything when it came out.
Oh, that's true. So it was like a marketing thing probably.
All about those ticket sales. It's my guess. I guess I don't know.
Yeah, because it wasn't like the Civil War wasn't really a character in that movie. It was just like kind of a given. It's like this could be given any war. I don't know why would they
There was just two conflicting sides. It didn't have to be in one nation, but
exactly. Fine. Or just wait another 5 years and then shoot the film, and then it's going to be a lot easier to get it done in a realistic environment.
It was still a fun film, though. I liked it. Okay, so that's it. That's my almost foolproof pretty much basically indie film art department checklist.
I love it. Well, thanks so much. We're kind of dragging on here. Should we move on to the featured filmmaker of the week?
Absolutely.
Let's do it. Tijuana Layne is our featured filmmaker of the week. She wrote, produced, and starred in The Science of Fear, a film centered on domestic and intimate partner abuse. The director she hired turned out to be a closeted alcoholic, a homophobic, and a misogynist. Eventually, she had to take the reins of leadership and direct the film herself. But when transitioning, it turned out the individual stole the hard drives with all the footage on it. And she says, I quote, do you want to read the quote?
Yeah, I was under a distribution deal, so I was up against the wall to complete this film, or my filmmaker career was over. I worked with my entertainment lawyer to get my film back, and I did, but the previous director destroyed the sound recordings. So I found an absolute genius sound designer who reworked the sound and delivered the film to the distribution company, and it's been picked up by Amazon Prime.
Nice. So never give up.
Never give up, but woof, what a rough ride.
Yeah, definitely. It's good to vet the people, too.
You know, some people hide that stuff really well for
That's
a while.
true. I guess there's no way to vet everything.
It's really difficult,
Because
too.
until you work with someone, you don't know them. That's another misnomer about like the whole interview process. When you interview people, it doesn't actually foreshadow how well they're going to do in their job. It just tells you how good of an interviewer they are.
Tells you how good of an interviewer they are and a little bit what their personality might be like.
Yeah. But
or
everybody's
the
on
personality they're going to project when they're on their best behavior.
Yeah, it's wild stuff. But thanks so much. If you want to be featured as a featured filmmaker of the week, I want to say featured 3 more times before I get to the website. So you go to indiefilmpodcast.com/submit, and we'd love it if you recorded a voice memo or maybe a little video, and make sure you have a link to some of your projects when you submit, and we can put those on the video screen for the video portion for the people that watch the podcast.
Because we want to show off your work, because you're indie filmmakers and you work hard, and not enough people gets to celebrate that. So it's fun.
Yes. I think all of us should be up there on the Netflix streaming services and on the Amazon Primes and things like that. It's because there's just too much monotony out there.
There is.
And
we'll keep an eye on that Warner Brother deal, find out how that goes and how much diversity we're really going to get in some of our productions.
It's just going to be 100 scripts, the same script that they're going to change the names.
Yep.
And they're all going to, everybody's going to, well, as long as we get work, right? Now it'll be all AI. All right. I'm going to get off that horse. Shall we succinctly say farewell at this juncture?
I think so.
Excellent. Bye.
Farewell.